So, Becky, we are live on this Friday morning, afternoon, I guess, really. I'm so excited because I've known you for a long time, never met in person, which is true with so many of us on LinkedIn and everything, but followed your journey because I admire so much of what you do for small town America and for Main Street America and so many of these communities that, they have such cool history, but they haven't built up and taken advantage of what they're doing. And so, um, for all of you joining us live, thank you so much. For those of you who are joining us on the recording, thank you as well. Like I said, I'm just so pleased to have Becky McCray here. Now, Becky, you live in Oklahoma, correct?
I do live in Oklahoma, Hopeton, Oklahoma, population 30 people.
Oh my gosh. Well, I live in Boyd. We got 1,000 people, and I don't know where those 1,000 are, but 30 people. That's amazing. 30 people. That's an example of a small town that needs revitalization sometimes. And that's what you help people do. So it's a big week for you, Becky, because your latest book, The Idea Friendly Guide, just launched. So huge congratulations for that. I know it's not your first one, but so how's the book going thus far? Tell us about that.
Oh gosh, it's going really well. I'm going to show it because I have a copy, of course.
Please,
so
please.
Look, it's so cute. So this, the designer and I fought over this a little bit. They were like, we should put like a little sprout or like bricks or like a thing or a person. And I was like, that's where their idea goes. So this is where your idea goes, not my idea. This is your idea. And then I'm going to mention this and show it because it's been really popular so far, which is large print. For the large print needers in the audience, like me, maybe not the greatest vision in the world. It's been so exciting. It's a multiple bestseller, like 4 different categories on Amazon where it was #1. It topped 2 categories on Smashword and 2 on Kobo. So I just am calling it the multiple bestseller. I'm so excited to have folks that have given great feedback on how practical it is. And like they're immediately doing things like they're scribbling in the margins already as they're reading it. So that's exactly what I want to hear.
Well, and when I read it, that's what I noticed is it's so user friendly. It's like, regardless of what your situation is, there's things that people can take advantage of and do right away, which I think is the key. Because sometimes we get so frustrated because it's like, well, that's going to take 5 years or whatever. But you show how that's not always the case, I admire the fact that you've worn so many hats in this journey of yours and becoming a truly renowned consultant in this area, in this field. And I don't know anyone else who does this. Not saying there's not, but I don't know of any. And you're so active on LinkedIn and you're always out there and you're sharing, and you do a lot in the United States, you do a lot in Canada. So all of these hats obviously have shaped how you see rural communities. Talk about your journey just for a little while, a few minutes, so let people kind of know where you're coming from and how this all started.
Sure. I'm a lifelong entrepreneur. And when I say that, I mean, like I started a car washing business in junior high. I'm not, so like all my life. I've been an antiques dealer and did some computer consulting back when like just learning computers and computer accounting. I used to help translate people between like regular people and accounting language and then computer language. So there was a lot of that went on early. I've been a rancher, grew up around a farming family, and then not maybe like a big farm, but we always had something going on the side. My parents were in the oil business in Texas when I was a kid. And then I married my husband.
Clarify something here, Becky. When you say that her parents in the oil business, my daddy was in the oil business. He's a roughneck. For those of you who are from Oklahoma and Texas, that doesn't mean that we were wealthy. Quite the opposite.
Oh gosh, no. I mean like truck drivers. Like my daddy was a truck driver. He was a truck mechanic, right? Like he had a technical school degree in diesel mechanics. And then he was like bought a truck and then started contracts, and from there built a trucking company, a small trucking company. Y'all are still thinking it's like he owned the moon, and he didn't. I mean, it was just like relatively, it was fine. So yeah. And then my granddad was a pumper. So those of you from oil producing regions will know who a pumper is. So
exactly. Yeah. Well, people always think when you mention oil that you were wealthy.
They do mention,
and 95% of us families, we're just working people, job to job kind of thing. That was not the case. So always clarify that. If you're out of state, people think, oh, the oil business.
They got all that oil money. No, exactly. It didn't work like that.
We wish.
The other part of my life that people kind of get the wrong idea about is rancher. You say, I'm a cattle rancher from Oklahoma, and they're picturing like Ponderosa, and it's No. Okay, bigger than a hobby, smaller than the Yellowstone, right? Like not the same thing at all. I've also worked some professional jobs, like I worked for a nonprofit organization. I worked in workforce development. I was a town administrator for a town of 993 people. I've been a local store owner for almost 13 years. And then that started in about 2006. So I also went online in 2006. Which is where I started like meeting people all across the country, and where I met you, Debbie, and where like all of that kind of thing happened. Live streaming shows in 2006, which people don't think happened, but it did. And then in 2015, Deb Brown and I started Save Your Town, which was our answer to, we both love small towns. We both have a heart for small towns. She was working as a Chamber of Commerce director. I was running this store. And we thought that we could do something together to be helpful to people from small towns. And the answer to that is Save Your Town, where we share all kinds of stuff that folks can use in their own community. So that's kind of the journey there from junior high through today.
That's a lot of jobs, Becky. Now you mentioned the town administrator. How'd that go? How'd that go?
Oh my gosh, like all town administrator kind of things. That was like, it was, they fired me. I'll go ahead and say that. Yes. Which was good because that's when I bought my store. And that was actually a really great thing. And that gave me the free time to do, not only be a store owner, but also to be online and learning and involved in my community. So town administrator was great for a couple of reasons. One is I got to learn so much, right? Like every time they're doing learn about this, I would turn out for it, because I was learning the whole thing. Right. And for a town of 993 people, you get to be involved in all aspects, and very directly, all aspects of how you run a town. And the thing I learned about it is how much it's a balance. So you can say, oh, that's not important. All the little parts are important.
Yeah.
We've got to make sure that there's water flowing. We also have to make sure there's a library and a town park. And then somebody has to make sure that the utility poles in the downtown get taken care of. And like there's all these pieces that go into it. And it's a matter of juggling and keeping all of those things moving, because you're trying to build community. And that's the bigger goal that's behind all of that detail work. Right. So I thoroughly enjoyed most of the town administrator job.
Did you have too many ideas? Was that the problem, the challenge? I can see you having a lot of ideas why I say that.
I mean, really, there is. But I had a mentor at the time who was a town business administrator for a nearby town that was about 4 times our size. He says, you're really trying to be too entrepreneurial. And so that, as far as I know, is about as good of an assessment of what's wrong with me as a town administrator as anything. Is like, I have ideas and we should do some stuff. Like,
and the town administrators are bureaucracy, to say the least. So thinking about all your roles and what you've done. And I think we live in such an exciting time because technology lets us connect around the globe. And as I said, I know you do a lot of work in the United States and in Canada, but you have international readers and things,
Yes.
And one of my favorite people is actually how I initially met you was through Chris Brogan. And I don't remember if you were on one of his shows. I don't remember. But when Stacy and Linda and I were doing Women's Leadership Live and we were having our events, I had talked to you about some things because I was interested in what you were doing. So that's an example. There's no gatekeepers because you are an international voice. You're an international influence, if you will, to people who have these small communities in these small towns. So if you think about your past and your experiences and all those things that you learned, if you will, how does that relate to the communities when you go into them? Does that help you or does that hinder you in their eyes, depending on the community? Is it bureaucracy? Is it just the community? Is it entrepreneurs? Whatever. Yeah. What role does that play for you?
It has helped me to know that the way to start when you are working with a community is not go to town hall and harass the overworked and underpaid town clerk about how she should do something more than what she's already doing, or to, call the mayor and think the mayor is in charge of everything. Because in a small town, those folks have to focus on that juggling act of like all the pieces that they're trying to keep active and keep things going. Regular people are the ones who come up with the really cool stuff. And so when you find out that there's a new run club that they're going to go running, that's an important part of community building. And then when you find out there's like 3 people in a town of maybe 2,000 people, there's 3 of them going, man, I really wish we had like more hiking and biking trails. They need to be introduced to each other because they each think they're the only one.
Right.
And so understanding who to talk to in small towns, you want to get out and talk to as many regular folks as you can, because that's where the good ideas are hiding. So that comes from my own experience. And then it also helps just in terms of having had a breadth of experience of having done lots of different things.
Right.
Then I have a lot of that knowledge in my head. This is the advantage of being old, is that I know lots of things. And so I can put together ideas, and I can also like refer people to resources, because I've been collecting for a long time all the greatest resources I could find. In fact, that's why I went online with my blog in 2006, is because I was still getting all these emails and great resources that I had signed up for as a city administrator. And I thought I was forwarding it by email to people I knew. And I was like, people are going to block me and they will never, they will not let my emails through. So I started the blog as like, you can go find my stuff over here. And that's how, which is how I met Chris Brogan in 2006. I remember like one of the first posts I read on his blog was him saying, I got 50 subscribers. And which, if you know Chris, like he was meteoric, stratospheric there for a while. And super well known for social media marketing at its peak. And I'm like, yeah, but he's just this guy with 50 subscribers from my viewpoint. But I have met so many amazing people because of connections that were made through Chris Brogan. And so I owe him a great deal.
I mention him all the time. He was one of the first people that I started stalking because I was so impressed with what he was doing. And I would call him a friend today. And I think likewise, but I just admire him so much because he talks to he's very much like what you do, Becky. He talks to real people the way people want to be talked to, not dogmatic, not, preaching, but I'm here to help. How can I help you? How do those communities find, or how do they find you to come in? Because let's do that. Tell us, explain who finds you and how you come in and what you do. And I know sometimes it's just you and sometimes it's you and Deb. Kind of walk us through that.
My co-founder is Deb Brown. She lives currently in Mississippi and grew up in Iowa. She likes to say her first small business was a pig that her daddy gave her. So she raised a pig. But she lives in Mississippi now, like a block from the beach, which is just awful. Wow. It's terrible. Terrible. I feel bad for her.
Someone's got to do it. Someone's got to do it.
Someone does. And so people find us lots of ways. And one of the ways is that they're online searching around about small towns. And since I've been writing and speaking about small towns since 2006 online, you cannot search around about small towns without running into my stuff. And that is, maybe I didn't design that necessarily, but I'm certainly happy that that's the case. A group in Nevada found us because they were looking about beautification. They were wondering about ways to make their community more attractive, and to solve some of the problems of things that didn't look so good around their town. Well, really, they're looking for revitalization, but that's what they're really looking for. So in their case, the keyword was beautification because that's what budget they could put it in. Other communities, the town of Caldwell, Kansas, came to me. How did we initially? I think they came to me for about their downtown and idea friendly kind of stuff like they had, because they have Caldwell, Kansas has a beautiful downtown. And so it's a matter of when they're having a challenge, they start looking for something that's going to help them to solve their own problem, because they know that nobody's going to come solve their problem for them. They need somebody who's going to help them figure out ways to use their own people and their own assets and solve their own challenges. And that's the approach that we bring. So if that sounds like the right approach, then we're perfect for you. If you want someone to come in and tell you what you're doing wrong and write up an analysis and a plan and a needs assessment and like give you a big binder with a label on it that you can put on your shelf, I won't do that for you. And neither will Deb, right? Like that's just not what we do. But if you want to, if you're already working on stuff and you want to make it work better, we will be glad to come and help you out. So they find us at the saveyour.town is the website address, as well as the name. It kind of throws people off. They're like, oh, .town. But yes, that is a thing. And so we have books and articles and newsletters and videos. I'll make a little pitch here for Deb's book as well, because,
please.
I showed you my book. I'm going to show you my book again because I just got this. Like it just came on Monday, right? Like it came out on Monday.
Monday
But
was the official launch day, so
it was the
congratulations.
official day. So there's you can see it's thin. It's not a super long book. It's like 120 pages, but it's just text, right? Like, and it's in stories and instructions and write this down. Deb's book is a very different thing. First of all, we're very different people. Let me explain to you the difference between me and Deb Brown. That's like 90% of what you need to know. Logical, thoughtful, feelings and colors and
Pictures.
Yeah, pictures. There's a lot of pictures in here. So Deb is the kind of person who has, is so bullheaded that she printed the entire book full color in and out. I mean, who does that? And then, so it's full of full color photos, that illustrate each story. And then as you learn each story, then she's as bad as me. Write it down now, put down what you're doing.
It's like a little workbook. It really is.
A workbook. It is a workbook. If you can get through this without writing something down, then you are must be sitting on your hands because it will give you ideas that you can take away and do immediately. And then she walks you through them. So Deb's book is one you browse and you look for ideas in it and go, oh, this is the one I want to do. And she'll walk you through that. But you don't necessarily get a lot of the grounding in the idea friendly method, which is why we have the idea friendly guide. Is like it grounds you in the method. But you don't even have to go to that expense. We do have lots of articles that are free. We do a newsletter every week. Deb and I take turns. And that's full of practical steps you can use to put into action right away in your community. And then we have paid videos. We have a video membership. If you like our videos, they're all 30 minutes or less, and they cover topics that rural people have told us that matter to them, like finding more volunteers and dealing with negativity and redeveloping their downtowns, filling empty buildings, things that rural communities need most. Those are the things we've made videos for.
You have really, really good resources. Because I remember when I first was looking at what you did and everything, I was like, my gosh, there's so much stuff here. If you think of, and what people, if you watch the news, they call us middle America, if you will, or flyover America. But there's so many small towns and so many rural areas. And Phil and I always take the back roads. I don't care where we're going. If we're driving, we take back roads because that's when you find all these communities and these cool places. And I love it when I go into a town. And McKinney, Texas is close to us. Not that it's small anymore, but it used to be. But their downtown, their square is amazing. It's such a phenomenal space for shops and restaurants, et cetera, in the courthouse. But then you go to some places and it's like empty buildings, like you said, and no life. And we used to live in a suburb in Plano, and we moved out to the country with our daughter and her husband and their family and on land. And all of a sudden we're in this little bitty town, and there's a major difference in the old timers who grew up and came here and the new folks. And not always do they get along, if you will. Now, for us, it doesn't matter because we're out here and we do our own thing. But to your point, if you're wanting to do something different, getting past those old timers who own those buildings and they don't want to do anything with them, to me, I see that as one of your biggest challenges. Is it or not? Because so many of these places have empty buildings that these families have owned for years but don't want to do anything with them.
Okay, so I got a lot to say about that. You covered a lot of ground with that. Okay. So let's start with this. The first thing is, just because the downtown buildings are empty does not mean the town is dead.
Right. Because
the shape of businesses today have changed. And so what we used to look at as most businesses were within storefronts and standalone buildings, now a lot of businesses are online wherever we are. And so those businesses are more hidden. So that's not even getting to mobile businesses and businesses that are moving around. And we have so many more service businesses, and they don't necessarily need a storefront. So the shape of businesses has changed. So before you say the town is dead, make sure you count all the businesses.
Good point.
The second thing is that I know that empty buildings is an enormous challenge for small towns. It's one of our slow building challenges. People have told us, we do a survey of rural challenges that we've done since 2015 through today, and over 2,200 people have responded to our survey. And so I know that finding a usable building for a business has risen to be one of the top challenges over the past 10 years. And then we get to your point about people are holding on to buildings and they don't want to do anything with them. Now, sometimes there are folks that have been there for a long time. Like I was in Arkansas and one mayor said to me that there's a guy who's 88 years old who said, you can have my empty buildings when I die. And I don't blame that guy. He's 88. He didn't want to mess with the issue of like selling a building is a big deal. Maybe he's got stuff in it. Maybe he's got the remains of a business from, maybe it's his dad's business for all I know. Like that could be a big emotional thing for somebody who's 88 to have to go through all of that stuff and deal with all of like, so I can get why they would say you can have them when I die. But there's always a way to use a building, even if they will not do anything else, right? Like if they're like, you can have them when I die, then the first thing is to say, can we wash your windows? Do you mind if we wash your windows? Or just do it, right?
That's
like
just
do you
simple things. That's
just wash the windows. And then this has worked before that you wash the windows for people and then other people go, your building looked so much nicer. And the old guy's like, oh, it did? What? What happened to my building? I have this secret dream and I'm daring somebody to do this, which is you take one of those buildings where somebody doesn't even live in town and you wrap the building. I have seen people do a building wrap, like for fairs and festivals. Like I was in Austin for South by Southwest, and Dell had wrapped a building with an exterior wrap, like you would wrap a car.
wow.
I'm daring you to wrap a building for somebody.
What did Dell wrap it with? What was their?
This is the same. Oh, they did. It was like promotion for the thing that they were doing inside the building.
Oh, okay.
And it's just wrap, right? Like, so as long as you got a knife, you can get it back down when you need to. But I'm just saying, like, the building will look a lot better. All right. So that idea out of the way. So yeah, wash their windows and then ask them something. That 88-year-old happened to be a retired lawyer and a retired justice, had been a judge. And so, you know, when law day rolls around and like the little kids have done coloring and drawings and the older kids have written essays, tell the lawyer, we have all these great things and we have no place to display them where the public can see them. It'd be a shame for them to just be at the school. We'd love for everybody to see them. Oh, wait, you have those buildings, right? So this works on a couple of levels. One, it's kids. Do you know how hard it is to say no to children's art? Like when you're standing in front of them with a little crayon drawing, like how mean do you have to be to say no to that? Don't call them, go in person, hold the drawing up. Okay. So that helps. And then once they say yes to that, then you can wash the inside of the windows too, hang the things up, sweep the floor a little bit, like hang a drape over the junk so that we don't see it. You know, there's always ways to cooperate with people, to understand where they're coming from,
Right.
to start with just a little empathy. There's probably a reason they don't want to do anything with it.
Right.
There's probably a reason that they said no to your usage idea. There's probably...
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, people have reasons, they have feelings, they have their own motivations. And if you aren't thinking through what those are, you cannot effectively help them come to any new conclusion.
And it's usually, well, not usually, often it's an emotional tie to your point with the lawyer, but it was his dad's story. If you can get into the emotions, you have a better chance, I think. One of the, like I said, I read all your stuff and everything. So I'm always, when I see a new idea, I'm like, oh, that is so cool. One of the ideas, and don't ask me where, I just remember reading about it, that you did it, but they had open space between two buildings and it was ugly. Yes. You know, so talk about what y'all did with that. That was, or what the group did together with y'all.
Yeah. So that's a hallway, right? Like the empty space between two buildings. A lot of times there's more parking. You know, there's always a trouble with having enough parking in the downtown on the front of the street.
Yes.
There's usually more parking at the back or the alleyway, or you can connect, you know, just half a block away, but it's on the other side of the block. So if there's space between two buildings, clean it up, dress it up, make it a hallway. You can walk right through there and put some signs, hang some art, put up, Enid, Oklahoma, they had some heavy foam board and they had art panels printed and they mounted on this heavy, like 1-inch thick foam board, and they mounted that to the walls and it lasted like 8 years.
Wow.
Hung out in the weather in Enid, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So you can do art and things. If it's wide enough, there's a really beautiful, one of the first ones I saw of this that made sense to me was in Ardmore, Oklahoma. And it's this big wide hallway that goes right down to a giant empty parking lot. And the downtown's all crowded. And I bet it was as wide as like a small building. I was like, you could put pop-up businesses all along this during your festival. And so people could park down there during the festival when there's no parking downtown or not enough. And then all these vendors be set up all along the way, and they'd have a reason and something to look at as they walked by to get them into the downtown. And so then people would be more willing to use the remote parking, and you'd have more businesses set up. You'd have more life and activity, right? Like everybody gets to win here. And then there's one.
I love that you remember all the towns. That's impressive.
Oh, well, they've got to come from somewhere.
Many, but you've been to so many. So
there's one in Kendrick, Idaho that's really cute. Kendrick is about 300 to 500 people, I would say. Wow. And it's this grassy lot. It's right next to the bank. And so the bank's maintaining this like lush, manicured grass lot with like beautiful plantings along the edge. And I'm like, this is a great example of a hallway, because back there is extra parking for the bank and it comes right into the downtown. And so it would be so easy to use that for special events when you need more parking in the downtown. Right.
And picnic tables. I've seen picnic tables in some where people can, or just different times, like the chairs where people can sit and relax and take advantage of that. Because there's never always enough. If you have husbands, sometimes I shouldn't stereotype, but who don't want to necessarily go shopping with you, there's a place for them to sit. Or if you have a small child, there's a place for them to do that too, which I think is a cool way to take advantage of that.
When I was at the National Main Street Conference, when it was in Seattle, I think, somebody brought up the idea that like they wanted to figure out how to get folks from the retired independent senior living community into the downtown. And they're like, but it's uphill. And so not everybody wants to hike up the hill and go into the main street shopping area. And I said, okay, so first of all, you got to make sure you've got a good accessible trail so that they can walk that whole way without any impediment. And the second thing is you want to put rest areas. You need rest stops in there. And so then in the room, then we're brainstorming the bench, the art installation. So there's something to look at, the little free library, pick up a book, right? Like, so there, you can make it so that journey then is easier for folks to do, and benches help with that. And then, again, this is just thinking like, okay, we're all people and we want to do things. We have to find ways to tap into what people want to do and just make it easier for them to do the things they want.
Well, and that's the thing, I think, if you live in a suburb where there's, 300,000 people or more, or whatever, you've got economic development organizations, whatever, and they budget and they get money, grants, whatever, to do those things. What you do so often is you go into small towns and you work with the people who live there, who have the ideas, and they make it happen without any big budgets. I mean, everybody chips in, everybody does their thing, and it works. We should do more of that.
The secret is to take small steps, because people get these big ideas, which are great. I love people's big ideas, but then they think they have to start with it looking just like that. And I'm like, actually, you can start a lot smaller. I was in Elkhart, Kansas, again, another town. I'm thinking that every time I come up with a town name, Elkhart, Kansas, which I want to say has maybe 1,100 people.
That's little.
It's pretty small. But it's a woman there told me she was running a really cool natural medicine kind of place. And she was like, what I really want is to shut down. My dream is to shut down Main Street and have a table right down the Main Street, and the whole town sits down to dinner, one of those community dinners right down Main Street. I said, that's awesome. How long have you been thinking about it? She said, 5 years.
Oh, wow.
I said, next weekend, I want you to talk to your friends. And then on Wednesday next week, I want you to get a card table or a small folding table and bring 3 or 4 friends and sit around the card table on the sidewalk and have your community dinner with just y'all. And then I want you to post pictures online. People are going to walk by and go, what are you doing? And you're going to say, we're making a community dinner. We want to shut down the entire Main Street. And they're either in or they're out, right? Which is fine. Either way, we want them to be in or out. But if they're in, then you can say, bring your card table. We'll be here next Thursday again. Come on down, make some chicken salad or something and bring it down. And then you're going to grow your way to that community dinner. And by the time you have 8 card tables set up, and then you go to the city council and say, we want to close Main Street, the city council is going to be like, oh yeah, I was at that dinner last week. Yes, I think we should do that.
That's cool.
But if you go to the city council the first time,
right,
what are they going to say?
No.
They're going to say no. because there's risk. And again, thinking from their perspective on the city council, you have no reason to think this is going to work. You know, you're going to catch it from all the business owners because the street was closed. You know, people are going to be unhappy because they had to drive a different way. Whereas if you went to the practice run on the sidewalk or on an empty lot or in a parking lot, wherever it was that you were piloting this, then they've experienced it and they have something to draw on besides just, oh, I'm sure I'm going to get in trouble for doing this. And so de-risk it.
I also think, and again, this is just us living out here, when you live in the suburbs, I don't know, people don't call City Hall or do, I mean, unless it's something really, really big, they don't really call or do that kind of stuff. In small town, because Bobby knows Jimmy and Susie knows Mary, they pick up they get the phone and they make a call.
Yeah.
So they, I think, have more pressure in some ways, to your point about it's hard to say yes because they know they're going to get the calls. If someone, when we first moved out here, there was I think there's one light in town, and if there were 5 cars, they would be complaining because there's a traffic jam. And they'd be calling the mayor. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm complaining. It takes an hour to get across town because of traffic, but it's the world you live in. So, is why, because you've done other books and different things, the blog and all those. What made you want to do the Idea Friendly book? What was the intent of that?
So that was, this goes back to 2006 when I had the store and I was going online and doing.
What was your store?
It was a liquor store. It was a liquor store in Alva, Allen's Retail Liquors, Alva, Oklahoma. I think my blog is still up on Blogger. Don't tell anybody.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
What wine to pair with Thanksgiving dinner, right? Like I wrote that.
That is so cool.
All right. So it's 2006. I'm posting all my stuff online on the blog. I'm exploring online communities. I joined Twitter. Chris made me do it. Before there were hashtags, right? Like, so it was this moment where we were doing all these cool things online. And then I was doing a lot more volunteering in my community because going from like city manager to liquor store owner, like I had more hours available to my week. Instead of 50 to 60 hours I was putting in at the job, I had like a 35-hour week and I was like not always busy at the liquor store. So I did do a lot more volunteering. My alumni board promptly elected me president of the alumni board. And so then like, but here's what I figured out. And this is why there is an Idea Friendly method. It drove me bananas that in those formal organizations, like where I was state president of a women's group, like we would spend an entire year meeting and we would have all these meetings and phone meetings and we would send stuff around and we're emailing all the time. It'd take us a full year to plan the next conference. And then some friends and I got together online in a conversation with Jeff Pulver, who was a connection of Chris's, who used to run like the video on the net or voice on the net conference, Vaughn conference. If you remember Vaughnage telephone that you could do online, like that was a Jeff Pulver thing. He was running a series of conferences called the 140 Characters Conferences, that there would be 140 of us who were characters and we would have a conference. And I harassed him online. I was like, when's the small town? And he's like, as soon as you do it. So we did it. It took about 6 weeks. 1 year, 6 weeks. Meeting after meeting after meeting, no meetings. So that gap was driving me bananas. Like I couldn't figure out how I was going to do with that. I actually burned out of all of my in-person volunteering and I ended up quitting every board, every organization, everything. By 2010, I didn't belong to anything locally, but I was doing a lot of stuff online. So I was trying to figure out how do we let go of all the overhead of how we used to do stuff and get things done in the rural areas without all of that and without having to just this constant drag against you waste so much of your effort maintaining an organization that's not helping you do the thing you want to do. And so that is where the Idea Friendly method came from. There's only 3 things in it because I wasn't going to have it be complicated. You just gather your crowd. Like you've got your idea. You want to have that community dinner. You gather your crowd. And the easiest way to do that is to have that happen with an experience. And so that is the card table, right? And we're going to go do it. So that's gathering your crowd, like calling your friends to be part of the card table thing. Maybe you have a message group, Like, how much easier is it to run a message group than a meeting that happens month after month after month? So we message group it. We build connections. Who has a card table? Who can bring? Who's available at that time? Who knows whether we're going to get in trouble for being on the sidewalks? Or after we get in trouble, who's going to bail us out? That's your building connections. And then you take small steps. And that's that first dinner at the card table.
Yeah.
And that's how you're going to get there. And you're just going to continue to take small steps until you're shutting down that whole downtown. So that is it. That's the whole thing. And here is the secret that comes from that. After all of these years of thinking about this intensively and working with so many communities, and Deb piloted so many of these ideas when she was chamber director in Webster City. But here it is. You build a stronger community through experiences that bring people together across different groups to each play a meaningful role. See, it has to be an experience, so we have something to reflect on, because that is how adults actually learn, is we have an experience and then we reflect on it. So, gosh, it was fun at the picnic, right? Like, I sat down at the card table and it was good. I can remember that. I can reflect on it. And then so that's the experience part. It has to bring people together across different groups.
Yes.
It cannot be the same people they already know.
Yeah.
It has to be to connect them with somebody else. And that's why we want to be public with it, so that somebody can stop that we don't know and they'll say, what are you doing? And you say, it's going to be a community dinner. Please join us. Bring your card table. That's going to help us connect across different groups. And then everybody has to play a small but meaningful role. So you need to bring something for the dinner. You need to bring your card table. You need to bring your friends. You need to participate in it, but you have to be able to play a role in it, because playing a role, you did part of it, means that you see yourself with the identity of, I'm involved in my community. And so by doing those three pieces, then you are changing the way people think of themselves, the way they feel, and the way they act in your community.
That is so cool, Becky. I was thinking about that with the volunteering and the meeting. We're going to call another meeting to discuss it. I think people, to your point, get burnt out on that, because it's like, I don't have time for all those meetings. Let's just get something done. But there's so few, full transparency here, there's so few organizations I donate to, because I know they put more of that money into the organization just existing than they do in the purpose that they're there. And I think that's unfortunate, because you've proven you don't have to do all that. You can make baby steps, to your point, and get some really cool things done. So let me ask you about the lady with the card table. Is she still relatively new at that, or has she gotten expanded?
I don't even know if she ever did it, because I've never heard. And do you know what? Does it really matter?
Oh,
why? Why do you care? Because you really want her to have done it, because it would be a success.
Yeah.
I just want you to take that idea.
Well, yeah, the idea itself is great.
And I want you to go, oh, I could totally do my idea.
Yeah.
I want you to see the reality of how that would work. And I haven't followed up. I need to reach out to Elk City or Elkhart and say, did y'all ever do that? And then I want to go back to the nonprofit thing. I used to work for a nonprofit. I worked for the Girl Scouts Council in my area. And boy, did it have some overhead, but it was also, the other thing, let me back up entirely and restart on that.
Okay.
Rural capacity building. I've spent a lot of time lately thinking about, how do we build the capacity of rural areas to be able to accomplish more? And one of the things that holds us back is that there is no funding for the people to do the work. So like, if we apply for a grant, they're like, oh, but you can only use this for the program. You can't do any overhead. You can't. There's a town in Mississippi. They have a beautiful community center, but they can't use it because it's not in good repair. And there's no grant. Like, you could get all the grants you'd like to build a new thing, but you can't do anything for this building that just needs some maintenance. Mm. And so we don't want to abandon the good things that actually exist in rural areas, because we have a lot of great infrastructure, but it needs some work. It needs some work. Like those downtown buildings that are over 100 years old that the 88-year-old doesn't want to sell. Part of the reason he doesn't want to sell it is because the roof's fixing to cave in the back.
Or he has to make it ADA compliant. It's expensive. I've
It
been to
is
so many
expensive.
towns for that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have stories about that too, but then we're getting in past an hour long if I do all of those. But um, the we have a lot of, like, we keep hearing a new loan fund announced, right? Like, here's a new small business lending fund, which is great. But when I look at the survey of rural challenges, what rural people tell me is that a lot more of them say they can't find a usable building than say they can't find a business loan. So maybe we've got nearly enough business lending, and maybe we need to redirect some funds into making sure that downtown buildings are good enough to use, because they're not good enough right now, and nobody's got $1 million sitting in their pocket to bring it up to whatever requirements are going to be required. So it takes a lot of ingenuity and creativity to make a downtown building from vacant to usable, and we're not doing enough to support those kind of things when they do happen. So even though that doesn't, like, that money didn't go into the store that went in there, that was an essential investment as a
Right.
preliminary step, or that building, that business can never open.
Right. So let me ask you something. So because again, I've so much of your stuff, and as you know, follow you. Have you ever gone into a community? I mean, I'm such an advocate, as you are as well, for social media, for digital space, for LinkedIn. And I mean, I use them all, but LinkedIn is my playground, if you will. But have you ever gone into a community and they needed the funds and they didn't have the funds? And to do something online, I mean, I share stuff all the time people are doing. And I always say, instead of buying a $5 cup of coffee, use the $5 and donate to the cause. I would think that you could do some digital things, some online things, virtual, to help those people raise the money. Have you done that?
I'm a big fan of Kathleen Minogue. Oh my God, she's going to kill me for not remembering her name. Kathleen Minogue from Crowdfund Better, because they do some of the best crowdfunding education. Kathleen Minogue. Okay, thank goodness I got that right eventually. Yeah, but they help people figure out how to do it, and they've done it with a number of small communities. And so they are the number one source for figuring out how do you crowdfund something in a way that is going to reach outside your boundaries. And the secret asset that rural communities have when they want to do something like raise funds outside of who lives in town now is the alumni. The people who used to live in your town, whether they went to school there or not, whether they just had family there, maybe they only spent summers there. A lot of these people are following your town Facebook pages online. They're in those groups, hanging out and eavesdropping about what's going on in your community. They are such a good source for funding when you want to do something. A community that did something like that is Winoka, Oklahoma. Their downtown was in rough shape, and they were having their every 5 years, all the classes get together. So all the reunions are at the same time. And they were having all school reunion, and somebody was bemoaning the state of the buildings, and somebody else said, well, why don't you give us the money? Why don't you pony up the money so that we can work on these buildings? And that was the beginning of a nonprofit that was called Project Winoka. They bought a building. They fundraised like crazy. They hammered that alumni list. They took all the donations from all the folks who used to live there, as well as a whole lot of local fundraising, and then, sponsors and businesses and organizations, and they rehabbed that building. And then they put it on the market. And who ended up buying it was the city, who needed a place for the public library. The public library is now in that building. So they took the money they got from the city, which was not a lot because, market rate at that time wasn't super great. Yeah. So they used that money to buy another building that was admittedly in worse shape. Then they worked on that building, right? So they continued this process. They did their entire downtown this way. Now, not their entire, not every building, but they did a whole bunch of building. I think they ran for 14 years. And then my friend Jeannie Cole was one of the board members, and she said, we just ran out of steam. And I was like, look what all you did.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
What a model.
It was amazing. It was amazing for their community. Not everything has to be permanent to create possibility.
That is so cool, Becky. I love the stories and I think that's one of the things that so many people don't go through small towns and don't see the lifestyle there. If they don't live in them, they don't see it. And so that's why Phil and I always do back roads when we're traveling. And we've been to a lot of back road places. But just to get off the main highway and to take some back roads and to see how people live, to see what's there. And to your point, experiences are so cool. I mean, especially younger generations, they are really putting a push to that. But I think it's true of all of us. We want to build something we can kinetic touch, feel, smell, the whole experience. So I just love what you do. I think you do amazing things. It's so inspiring, because I think that yeah, there's just so much opportunities out there, to your point, of what can be done. What's one of the most favorite things you've done when you've gone into a community? Like, you've talked about all these different projects and different
Oh my
movements.
gosh.
What comes to?
All right. So there's been a lot. One of them is Pullman, Washington. And this is one of those, like, a teeny tiny step that created big change kind of thing. I was in Pullman, Washington, which is a big town. I want to say there are like 20, 30,000 people and a university campus at the edge of town. Mm-hmm. So before I even got there, they're like, we have a dirty sidewalk problem. It's terrible. Oh, it's awful. They're kind of on a hillside. So every time it rains, like, stuff washes onto the sidewalk, which makes perfect sense. So we walked around, and somebody was like, oh, we've done so many cleanup days, we should do another cleanup day. And I was like, well, if that's what you need to do. And then somebody said the Chamber of Commerce did the last one, and the chamber should do another cleanup day. And I was like, oh, hold on. No, if you don't want to take it on, then it doesn't need to happen, because it's not your priority. So you don't get to tell somebody else it's their priority. It doesn't work that way. So they were really quiet for a little bit. And it was really, like, it was an awkward moment. And I made him sit there. I was not going to rescue him. After a while, a business owner named Willow, who is, she runs a business downtown. She raised her hand and she said, I'll sweep my own sidewalk. And I said, that's awesome. Thank you for committing for that. And take pictures when you do. Hashtag it, Clean Your Own Sidewalk Day. Put it on your favorite channel. Tag 2 friends, right? Tag 2 friends. That's the essential point. Which she did. This actually worked. She started a movement. Suddenly, all these other business owners are sweeping their own sidewalks on Wednesdays. And so then the whole downtown, every single Wednesday, the whole downtown is looking better. And the city, seeing this, went, we can change the work schedule for the street sweeper and come around on Thursday mornings and pick all that up. So just sweep your stuff off your sidewalk into the gutter. The street sweeper will be around to pick it up in the morning, early hours. But if Willow had sat at that meeting or in the room after we did the walk around and said, I've got this great idea. We're going to all sweep our own sidewalks. It's going to be great. We don't need to do a cleanup day. We're going to all sweep our own sidewalks on the same day, all of you. And then, like, you with the city, can you change the work schedule for your street sweeper so that they'll come around on Thursday mornings? We should all do that. No one was going to agree to that.
Right.
So she didn't try to change their minds. She did not try to convince. Yeah. She took her own action, which we can all do. She took her own action. She made it super easy for anybody else to take action. And then it was like a movement, right? Like, then it's like the sweep your own sidewalk movement. And that energy lasted for like 5 or 6 years. And then they've just recently redone their sidewalks, and Deb was just there. And so, like, people are excited again. And so I think Clean Your Own Sidewalk Day is back because people wanted to continue to do it. So the part for all of us to take is take your own action and make it easy for others to join in, and make it more like, a TikTok challenge, which is what Clean Your Own Sidewalk Day feels like. It's like, oh, that's the challenge. I got to go sweep my sidewalk. Then it is like, could you serve on the beautification committee for a full year? No. Do you want to come help on cleanup day? Because it's going to be the hottest day of the year and we need you for 6 hours in the blazing sun. Why is it always the hottest day of the year? No, just all I want you to do is clean your own sidewalk too.
That is so cool. That is so cool. So there was this town, again, as I said, we take the back roads, and I love to stop in these little stores and shops and, see what's there. We stopped in this little town, and this woman, it was morning, and this is such a strange thing because I didn't know you were going to talk about that. And she was out there on her thing. She had just finished sweeping, and
Yeah.
she had a bowl of rose petals. And I said, "What are you doing?" And she says, "Well, this was my grandmother's shop, and she used to always have roses in on the counter." And she said, "So my tribute to my grandmother is every morning before I open up the doors, I come out, sweep the sidewalk, and throw rose petals out." I still remember that. I still remember that. I can see what she looked like. I can see the whole experience of it. So that is such a cool story. And you're right. It's just what you can do yourself, not about
Yeah.
anybody
Yeah.
else. And then other people will follow, most
I
likely.
I had a gal walk up to me, and I think it was Linda Selmanson in South Dakota, who came up to me at the Rolex conference and said, "I've been wishing that the city would start yoga in the park, and I just realized after your talk, I just need to go do it." And I was
Yeah.
like, "That's pretty much it. Call a friend, and it's yoga in the park, right? Take a picture, post it online. Yoga in the park again Saturday. Come join us, right? Like, what else do you need? It's a small town. You don't need anybody's permission. Just go do yoga in the park."
But I think that people get so hung up on bureaucracy and all, our whole lifestyle of what we shouldn't do and who we have to ask and blah, blah, blah. You're right. Just go do it. I mean, what's the word? I always say you got a 50-50 chance that it's going to be a
It's
good
going to
thing.
work or it won't, right? Like,
Exactly.
but I have to say, we've all been trained in this. Like
Yeah, we
the
have.
very first thing you did, like when you were in school and there was like a school group, then they had like meetings and officers and somebody took the minutes and like, so you got trained in that. If you were in, FFA, then you had to learn parliamentary procedure and you used that all your life. And, this has been something that we have been training people to do. And it made sense at the time it was created.
At the time, right.
Because it was about, how we could communicate with like mail and carbon copies, right? Like we could communicate to multiple people that way. And you could organize something at a distance using these methods. Well, you know what? We can organize stuff at a distance now using a whole lot of new tools. And we don't need the same structure that we needed at the time. We need this new structure. And that's what the idea friendly method does for us, is it gives us a simple, repeatable framework that's not a bunch of complication, but is just a way to go, okay, this makes sense now. And this piece goes here. And I can gather my crowd. This card table on the sidewalk is going to help me gather my crowd. We're going to build connections with other people who haven't stopped yet. And then we're going to take small steps, and we'll do it again next week and we'll have more people.
And this is, I put your link up here for your book. People can go on your website and get your book there. It's for certain various places, but if they go here and look at it, they can see where to put the book at. And I think it's so relatable to so many things, because no matter what it is you're doing, I don't care if you live in a town of 300,000, we don't have to overcomplicate things. We can make things a lot more simple. Yeah. And I think the book addresses that. And you don't have to be just rural America to take advantage of that any way, shape, or form. So.
No, I just heard from a gal from Nashville who bought the book on Rob Hatch's recommendation, and Rob is another friend of Chris's in the grand the network of Chris
up there. Yeah.
And so Rob wrote about it in his newsletter, and she bought it from Nashville, and she emailed me a link to a story of what was going on in Los Angeles that she saw was the same, was idea friendly. I'm like, it's everywhere, baby. But small towns are where my heart is.
Yes.
Not enough people talk to towns under 1,000 with useful things, practical things they can do. And so that's why that is who Deb and I talk to.
Do you know how many towns are there 1,000 or less? Do you know, Becky, in America? I was going to look it up and I forgot to.
I want to say, actually, like incorporated communities that are city and town, I want to say, oh gosh, you're going to make me lie. It's thousands, but it's under 10,000, I want to say.
Okay. But I think it's more than people think it is.
It is. It's like 75% of all municipalities are under 2,500 people.
Yeah. I mean, people have no clue. And all the decisions are made, on the coast, as they say, but there's this whole middle America that doesn't necessarily fall into that, but they just take your ideas. What is one thing, your next project, your next big thing you're going to be working on? What's next for you?
Well, I'm going to go look up how many small towns there are in the US, because I have this somewhere, because I got it from City Lab. Okay, so next stuff that we're working on. So Deb and I are working on some solution guides, which are even shorter books. These are related to our 30-minute videos, which are designed for you to you want to share this in your town and get people excited and take action. do things immediately. That's what those videos are for. Some people would rather have that in print. And so we're issuing solution guides, which will be ebook and in print. The first one is on housing, and that one will be coming out in 2026. Hopefully early 2026. However, you never overpromise on that kind of stuff. And then Deb and I are also working on some cohort groups, which is where we'll take a group of people who are going to bring their own ideas, and we're going to help them work through their ideas. So whatever your ideas, anything from yoga in the park, which is relatively easy to for us to just say, you should go start that.
Right.
You have a phone, put a video on your phone. There's your instructor. To people who are like, I want to revitalize a downtown building and maybe make it into a small business area, or, whatever their ideas are. That's what we're going to help them do using a cohort structure. So they have some like compatriots to work with them on it while they're working on it. So the first one of those is going to be around the subject of collaboration. We're doing that with Dakota Resources in South Dakota, which is another collaboration. We're also working some with Andrew Button out of Canada with Mashup Lab, and he and we, all of us, y'all, we all are going to do it, of working with people on whatever their ideas are. And then I'm scheduling speaking into 2026. The next event that I'm traveling for is going to be in Yorkton, Saskatchewan. And it's their Steaks and Stems dinner, and I'm going to be the dinner speaker for this agricultural themed banquet. And they saw me when I spoke at the Canadian Beef Industry National Conference and said they wanted me to come back and do their local thing.
Yeah, you speak. I mean, all the time. I see you, United States, Canada, et cetera. I mean, you're always on the road. Both of you and Deb both speaking. Sometimes together, sometimes separate. But y'all are always on the road speaking. So
now, wait. Now, not always, right? Like if there's an airplane, there's only one of those a month, right? If I have to get on an airplane, there's only one of those a month for a couple of reasons. One is there's cows, and the other reason is I never want to be that person who is always on the road and has just like glazed over and lost their enthusiasm. And so that's why I keep some limits on how many of these I do. It seems like I'm always on the road because that's when I'm talking the most.
So when you say if it's an airplane, it's once a month, but if it's car, you can drive, and obviously it's more.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I do more stuff in Oklahoma has suddenly remembered that I'm here, which is awesome. Like I was
Isn't it funny how they look at people way away and they forget who's their backyard, who's an expert. They take to you, you're just Becky, but to everybody else, you're this person who has all these amazing ideas and ability to motivate others and to get them moving in the right direction. Well, people can connect with Becky on LinkedIn. You can go to LinkedIn. You can also go just to Save Your Town and sign up for the newsletters. But and like Becky said, she literally is everywhere. But I encourage you to go to LinkedIn. I would like to say that something that you said earlier with how people find you, and I think this is a real relative thing to anyone on LinkedIn because they just made the change. Used to it was just keywords, beautification or whatever. Well, now it is, I need someone to help me make my downtown area better or whatever you say, like we're talking. And so again, I can see so many people finding you, but that's a tip for anyone on LinkedIn. Make sure in your copy and in your LinkedIn profile, you say what you do so people can come to you and find you. Because, there's so many people who find you on LinkedIn, right, Becky? I mean, you've got your newsletter there. And
I do have my newsletter there. And that is actually just my email newsletter that I send. And I publish mine under my name, and Deb publishes her issues under her name as a newsletter. So you can catch those. So, and this goes back to my very oldest piece of useful social media advice that's still good, which is answer customer questions. So whatever your customers are asking you or should be asking you, you should be writing those answers over and over and over again. I have been doing that since 2006, and I will continue to. That's why my liquor store blog had what wine to serve with Thanksgiving dinner. It was our most popular post ever.
Because people asked the question, they wanted to know.
Every year we updated with new brands, right? Like here's what's good this year.
But that also goes back to everything you do is about community and relationships and engagement. Just because you're on social media does not mean you don't engage. You do engage. People forget that. If people ask you something on there, just like on your newsletter, you always respond to those comments. I respond to people. You have to respond to let people know you're there. That's why people come back and want to talk to you, because you do answer those questions for them. So, well, Becky, is it anything you wanted to share that I haven't asked you about? I loved our conversation.
Oh my gosh, no, we covered the whole gamut. I mean,
Oh,
I think
good.
we talked about everything. Thank you so much for inviting me on and for letting me come and brag about my book because I'm so
I
excited about
was
it.
thrilled. And like I said, one of these days we're going to meet in person. I wonder how far it is from where you live.
You
And
know, we're really not that far apart.
I
We
don't
can't
think
be
we are.
more than like 4.5 hours
Yeah,
apart,
I wouldn't
maybe
think so.
5.
Yeah, I would think it's relative. But one of these days we're going to meet in person. But until
Looking
then,
good.
I'm grateful for the digital space and the time we get to spend together. And I just want everybody to get Becky's book, take a look at her website, and sign up to subscribe for her newsletter because there are just so many wonderful ideas. And to your point and what you shared today, many of those can be used regardless of where you live. It doesn't matter
Absolutely.
what the population is. So thank you so much, Becky, and you have a blessed day. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And again, whether you're live or on the recording, I appreciate you being here. Be sure and check Becky's LinkedIn profile and connect with her. Thank you, y'all.